Okay, good morning. Uh, this is going to be an audio. Just put in earbuds or crank it. Nothing to look at. I ran out of fancy ideas for my car to hold the camera up. Uh, this is letter 95 to my son Jeremy. Uh, about when I was in my 20s in the 80s, which I wasn't wasn't thrilled about. I mean, the 70s was so great after the great 60s. The 80s we were like in our 20s. It was time to shit or get off the pot. And but we was still running around like maniacs. And but I had a court case when I was recovering from the motorcycle accident. My dad told me we got a court case because it was a state road and I had a bump on a state road and went into oncoming traffic. And so my dad hired Nick Nick B. Sometimes I blurt out real names tough. This is a letter to my son. I don't really care. I'm not doing a whole 20-minute story over because I mentioned somebody's name. It's creative fiction anyway. So who knows if this all really happened. So I had a court case, and my dad's buddy from PAL and from the neighborhood, and we all us kids played football together, and the dads were the coaches, Nick B included, and he had a little office up in Selden by the used car lot at the end of Boyle Road, across the street, a little tiny house, and that was Nick's office, and he had a desk like mine, control piles of stuff, and he was a hot mess, and but I've seen him find things in his piles in his desk like I would do, but it was a little unnerving. And people in my ear, maybe you should get a better lawyer or whatever. And I discerned that maybe Nick was out of his league, suing the state of New York, who had endless lawyers. So I went to see Simon and Simon on my own without telling my dad, just to see what they would say. You know, they were the new big negligence lawyers. So I went down to Bayshore and hi D. Went down to Bayshore and went in to see Simon and Simon, and I told him the story. And if you lose a body part, like I lost a kidney and my right shoulder, and that's big bucks. What would it cost to replace a kidney these days? Money, people. So get out your abacus or a pencil and paper or a crayon and try and keep track of these figures. At least I won't be corrected because my buddies, when I get something wrong, but these are my numbers. Only I remember these. And Simon and Simon, they listened to my whole story of woe, and they said, we're going to tell you two things. One, we guarantee you $2 million. Two, we're not going to take your case because you're already represented by, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, well, thanks, I guess. And I go home and, still didn't tell dad, but guess what? Lawyers talk. And Nick B found out I was at Simon and Simon, and dad found out I was at Simon and Simon. I got called on the carpet. What are you doing? What do you think? I'm like, shut up, dad. I'm just checking it out. So anyway, Nick Bruckner figured he should send me to guys that he kind of hired, Cooper and McElliott, a law firm in Deer Park on Deer Park Avenue. Luckily, I had experience with Deer Park Avenue. And so I went down to Cooper and McElliott's office, and then I felt a little better because, they had less sloppy desks, and they were a law firm. And the guy with a suit and a tie, the old guy that came out and, befriended me, he would smile mid sentence for no reason. I guess a disarming thing. And you would smile back at him like, what the fuck am I smiling at? And this is just this guy. And he laid it out for me, and he said we're suing him for $100 million. It wasn't a bump in the road. It wasn't a pothole. It was a patch job. You know how you see white highway or black highway, then you see a white section or a black section. That's a patch job. And they're allowed a certain elevation over the distance of 10 feet. They're allowed 1 inch over 10 feet. And this was 4 inches within 10 feet. So we had them. You know, six people tell you don't count your chicks before they hatch. You might not get nothing, and six people tell you, oh, you're gonna clean up. So I was in the middle of that in my head, you know, at 20, in my 20s, 23, because it took a few years. That's why I have the patience of gravel. Everything just took years. You know, starting from the months which seemed like years getting out of the hospital, and this took years. Now the court case has taken years. And so I go to court finally, you know, 3 years later, and this is just the start of the money story, the money trail, if you will. If I run out of tape, I'll just have to do a continued. I go to court in Hop Hog, surreal. You know, my parents were working, you know, nobody came with me. I was 23, 24, and I met the two ladies that were driving the cars that I flew into. They looked like they saw a ghost. I think I saw the ambulance driver guys. And we go into court, and my lawyer told me to cut my hair and shave my beard, but I was, you know, fucking hippie till the end, and I just put my hair in a ponytail. I wasn't cutting my hair for the man. I should have listened to him, but it didn't matter. I don't think it would have changed things. So I go into court, and they make me open my shirt and show them my scar. You know, it's like a freaking the Monopoly game, 4 railroads on my belly, and we go in and we do that. We come back out, and he goes in, and he comes out, and he says, "Listen, Bobby," he says, "you know, the state has, you know, hundreds of lawyers. They could fight this, you know, forever, or you can go to trial, and they can say you don't get nothing, or they're offering you $273,000. What do you want to do?" And then he, you know, smiling halfway through everything. I wanted to knock out his smile at this point, and I'm like, nobody to call, you know, we didn't have phones, you know. I had to make this decision on my own. It was surreal. Do I take a chance and go to court and get nothing? Because one of the cops at the scene looked at the remnants of my bike, which had just gone, my chopper, which had just gone head on with a car at 40 miles an hour. And he said, it looks like the forks fell off. So my lawyer said, and the logic to that is that the judge is going to think that the cop has nothing to gain by saying that, but you have everything to gain by disputing that, because they were trying to say that, you know, I guess the bike homemade chopper was not, you know, up to snuff mechanically, and maybe the forks fell off when I hit the bump. But, you know, if we took that to court, we could have said, you know what, they had just inspected the bike a few weeks ago, a few months ago. You know, the people I was suing, the state of New York, inspected the bike and said it was okay. And Spider says he looked back, and I went on my side and rode and came back up, and I rode right into that first car. So, but that was a risk I would have had to take, you know, them battling me on that in court, maybe getting nothing. So big decision, BA. 273, which they would get 80,000 of. The lawyers, they get a third. So that was like 162. It was actually 250, and they added on 13,000 or 23,000 for outstanding doctor bills. FML at that point. And so it was, you know, 273, and then 80% minus that was I mean, a third minus their third. They got 80 grand, the lawyers, and I had 162. If I had my druthers, I'd rather have, you know, Sybin's 2 million, But I don't think that really could have played out any differently. I would have been in the same situation with Sybin. You know, they've been questioning the stability of the bike, and uh, who knows, law. You know how I feel. I wrote that in a song. You know how I feel about politics and money. I hate them both. Uh, so I said to the smiling Jack lawyer, I says, well, I guess I'll take the offer. If if I have to gamble and I could get nothing, I'm not a gambler, never have been. So I took the 273, and they got their 80, and I had 162 or something like that, or 63, and the check had to clear in the bank for 3 weeks in those days, cavemen. So the check was in the bank and was going to clear, and I was going to get $162,000. I had never even had a checking account in my life up to this point. What the F am I going to do with $162,000? I did not know. God bless my mom and dad. They did not know. They never, saw this kind of chunk of money either. Yeah, I wish I had gone. I wish I had gone. My personal struggle now. I wish I had gone and talked to Uncle George, who was in banking. Even though it was commercial banking, at least he could have told me something. And but so I kind of butted heads with Dad. I butted heads with Dad at that point, and before then, I think decided to move out and move in with my buddy Nelson, Crazy Nelson from Sayville, who worked at King's with me. And I didn't have too shabby of a job. I was working, King's, forklift master of the world, and making 300 of something a week. And then one day I'm like, what am I working so hard for? I got $162,000 check clearing in the bank. Why don't I take it easy? Wrong. So I actually took a half a day at work from King's, and I was gonna go home. So I didn't have my car, whatever monstrosity I had at that point. So I borrowed Nelson's car, a Pontiac T1000, which is like a Civic, a little box, and it had ball brakes, bad brakes, and ball tires. Sayville Selden connection. And so while the check is clearing, I leave work early in Nelson's car, and I go to get on Southern State unsuccessfully, and I must have went around the curve. Guys, slow down on the curves. Curves have screwed me 9 times out of 10. Bad stuff that's happened was in a curve. Believe me, slow down for the curves. You're not indestructible. You're going too fast. So, yeah. So, and never do stuff in your car when you're on a curve. Wait till a straightaway. And when you look away from the road, it's for 1/1000. I don't care what you're doing. Do it in 12, 20 steps. 1/1000. 1/1000. By the time you say 2/1000, your eyes better be back on the road in front of you, because shit happens fast. 1/1000 back. 1/1000 back. 1/1000 back. That's how you drive, bitches. So I go to around the curve at Bayshore Road, which is like almost a 360, to get onto Southern State. And I hit one side of the curve, I hit the other side of the curve. I ended up on Southern State sideways. And a Cadillac doing 65 took me out on the driver's door, T-boned. And there was enough room in that squished up car, like an accordion, for one body in one position, and that's the position I was in. And I woke up in the hospital again with my family standing around me, and I apologized immediately. I said, I'm sorry, I don't know how this keeps happening. And it turns out I had to wear, braces of this, that, and the other thing for 9 months. And, it wasn't as horrific as the motorcycle accident, no. out of body experiences or anything, but it laid me up, and I was in Sayville on a waterbed, and I recovered, there with Nelson, and then the check came in. Chapter 28, Bob, figure it out. So the check clears for $162,000. What the F do you do with that? And so I, put it in the bank. And I was in Sayville, and I started, buying, anything I wanted, because I was driving around, and I would see for sale signs on vehicles, and it was kind of cool for the first time in my life to know that I could buy pretty much anything that I saw with a for sale sign on it, vehicle-wise. So I actually got tired of waking up in hospitals, so my buddy Larry's uncle M had a black Coupe de Ville Cadillac, 89 or 85, I forget, for sale for like $9,000. So I bought it cash, y'all, and got some metal around me, the black tank, and there's a whole story to that. I'll have to tell that next. The upstate and the caddy and my camouflage khaki story turned out to be a piece of crap, but legendary anyway. So I bought a Minor Bird because, Larry's cousin Joey had one, and it was cool. He used to curse and stuff. What a pain in the $500 Minor Bird. And birds are messy bastards. It's not even worth it. You're just changing papers. So the bird, but I was running out of stuff to buy, and so I figured, boy, I better get this money out of my hands. And ironically, coincidentally, coronically, Mom worked at the IRS. Sorry, Mom, here it comes. And some financial advisors gave a seminar. I hope this thing is on. Yeah, 17 minutes for a 2-minute story. Some financial advisors gave a seminar at the IRS. You think you can trust financial advisors, you think you can trust the IRS. Mom, you can trust Mom. Mom got a free referral because she attended the presentation, and Mom gave her free consultation to me for the financial advisors. Their name began with B. They're at the top of my lipstick guy list. It was a mom and pop, a financial advisor team from Lake Grove, and I went to their house. That's where their office was. Clue number 1. Don't deal with people whose offices are in their house with that magnitude. And I walked into them like a 23-year-old dope, with $50,000, $120,000, $30,000. I forget how much I had by the time I, was putting the brakes on now. I gave Nelson from Sayville, I gave him $5,000 to get on the deed of his house, so his divorced wife would leave him alone. And then I had to give him $5,000 to replace the piece of crap car that almost killed me. So the money was just flying out. I took my dad and my grandfather to Greece for about $7,500. That's a show coming up later. And I gave Dad and Mom some, another $7,000 or something to redo the kitchen of the house, which is, the beautiful Henry Avenue 35 kitchen where 1,000 family meals have been had since. And I'm out by the mailboxes at our down the block, and people are starting to come and get the mail, but I got a few more minutes here. So I walked into the, sheep into the lion's den of these financial advisors with, over $100,000. And I basically said, get this money out of my hands, please. And they said, oh, yeah, sure, Bob, we'll hook you right up. and they put 10,000 in Equitech, 10,000 in Oppenheimer, 10,000 in something else, and these were less interest, more secure, which I learned way too late. But they put the bulk of it, like 75,000, into a second mortgage company at a very high interest rate of 18%. Uh, but the higher the interest, the higher the risk. I didn't know this. I didn't think there should be any risk. It's my money, and I'm gonna, invest it. So these financial advisors had their routine down with the mom and pa, and sign this and here's, oh, look at this, is beautiful, and we'll have you here and we'll have you there, and you'll do great. And because I couldn't work at the time because I just woke up in the hospital again, so I couldn't work. So that gave them a reason, a fake reason to generate a lot of interest, 18%. So I was getting $1,200 a month in interest just walking to the mailbox without touching the $75,000 initial investment. That was cool with me, $1,200 a month in 1985 was all right. Uh, so that happened for a while, and then I thought, you know what, I better go do something. I'm not just going to sit around and spend money. Uh, so I got a job. I got a job at the car wash in Vets Highway. I don't know why. Uh, but I needed to, exercise. It was good exercise for my shoulder, wiping cars. And it was just a weird little job. And then other shit started to happen. I'll continue the story a little later. Peace, y'all. Love you, Jeff.